we can both kind of be in it. Okay, let's see who's up at 9. Yeah, I looked at the clock. It was 9 o'clock.
Oh, 1 minute too.
Oh, my stove there says 9. I don't know which is right. We'll see who comes on at 9 o'clock in the morning. We have 2 people on at 9 o'clock in the morning. Hi, Jackie.
So Deb's been busy with her new quilter.
My new long arm. Well, it's not a new long arm.
No, new program on her
I just
long
did
arm.
my second quilt.
And it looks
Hi,
amazing.
Daisu. Hi, Ruth. Excuse me. I just kind of
literally fell out of the shower.
Just literally fell out of the shower. I went for my morning walk.
And came out with her shirt on backwards.
Yeah, then I had to take my shirt off because I had it on inside out. Oh, my soul. Where's the coffee? You should have your coffee.
Oh, I'll get it after.
Okay, it's good morning. We are going to have no interruptions today. And this is class 2 for the So Long. Hi, Marie. So have we decided? We talked and then we realized it was 9 o'clock. Are we going to go... not skip a week next week?
We can, because I'm here, yeah.
Yeah, I think next, third class is going to be next Saturday. Next Wednesday.
At 9, same time.
Yeah, we're going to go with Twyla's schedule. She doesn't work every Wednesday, but when she's working with a Wednesday, we're going to do it. Good morning, Janet.
I know, Janet. Isn't that amazing? She's been up and had her walk. And by the smell, she's cooked her muffins.
Yes,
like it smells like cinnamon when you walk in. It smells really good.
Oh, we've got somebody from Alberta.
Hi, Evelyn.
What time is it from Alberta? In Alberta. Okay, so we're gonna get started.
We are.
Does everybody have their step 1 done?
We can recap that quickly.
Yeah, we'll show step 1.
Yeah. So you know, so you guys, you know how Deb was going to do 2 quilts?
I was gonna do 2.
Right? Well, she's up at that.
Yeah, I'm up that.
Okay, so last week, week 1, with all the interruptions, right?
Yeah.
This is what your finished blocks should look like. So your 7 flying geese, points going to the middle, and 7 flying geese, points going to the middle. And you have a 2.5 by 4.5 on one end, a 2.5 by 4.5 in the middle, and a 4.5 by 4.5 on one end. And yes, that looks strange. Everybody thought that should be in the middle, but it isn't. It'll all fall into place.
It's 6 o'clock in Alberta.
Oh my word, and she's up.
Wow. Oh, Ruth has step 1 done. Awesome.
Good.
I'm going to show you guys. I'm doing another one.
So these are her first 2 that she originally said she was going to do.
But then I decided I wanted to do something in a different colorway. Have it all ready to sew up at next week at retreat. How cool, Sandra. So I am doing one in this colorway. It's hard to see. But the reason I got a brain fart that I want to do a nautical one. So I wanted to do it in blues and teals. So I am doing another one as we go along. And there's going to be an option for you guys. If Twyla's showing the original plan for some of the blocks, then you can follow that. But we're also going to throw in an option for a nautical quilt. So, so
when we get to that point, you'll be able to see both options.
We'll show you both and you guys can decide. Anne's got hers done from Sydney. Awesome.
I'm sure the people that were choosing Christmas fabric probably won't go nautical with theirs.
No, probably not.
But the original one, for those who asked, there were a couple questions about whether or not Christmas fabric
would work,
but it certainly would.
It would.
Yeah.
It would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get started. So, do not cut as we're talking because we're going to show 2 different methods today. And after you watch both methods, you may decide to use one or the other. So we're going to start with one method and then we'll move on to method 2. So for the first method, if you were going to do this method, we're working on half square triangles today. So if you're going to do this method, we are going to need 44 half square triangles total. And they finish at 2.5 inches square. So we're going to start with the first basic method, which probably everybody has done, where you start with your squares. If I can get a hold of them, where you start with your squares and draw a diagonal line and sew 1/4 inch seam on either side and then cut it in half. So if you're going with that method, you will need 22 background squares, but you're going to cut them at 3 by 3 to give yourself a little extra to square up. And then you would also need 22 print fabric 3 by 3. So the other thing we wanted to show you is just anybody have one of these? And I actually should have brought one of the other ones to show too. Is there one of those out there?
There is, I think.
Yeah, let me grab that too quickly.
Okay.
You can explain that one if you want.
So this helps people draw their diagonal line. So you see the indented line going down the middle of this ruler. You lay that directly on the point. But Twyla has another one here.
So you have two options that, or you can use a normal ruler, no problem.
I like this because it draws your line to sew on.
Well, this one does.
Yeah,
too.
I know.
Yeah,
but other
I
than
do
just
too.
A regular
Yeah,
ruler.
I do too.
Yeah.
So if you use a regular ruler, just to show you,
I only have these in stock right now. The
there's
other ones.
a couple of these.
Oh, is there a couple?
And there's actually a shorter length, which I prefer the shorter length. Just for ease of, unless you're doing
because
really
you
big
do a
blocks.
lot of small
So
blocks.
just to show you, if you don't have a special tool, any ruler that has a 1/4 inch mark of any kind, if you put your...
Wait, I gotta point that down so they can see you.
Mm-hmm. If you have...
I gotta find my camera.
Where are we?
We are right there.
Okay. So this ruler, which is just we're going to use later, has a 1/4 inch mark right here. So you would put that 1/4 inch mark corner to corner, and then you would draw down this side, flip it around. Whoops, I probably lost you in the camera when I did that, did I?
Well, I moved to.
And put that mark corner to corner again, and draw your line. But with
And then
this,
draw your line, because you didn't draw the line down the center yet.
I don't draw the line down the center.
Oh, you just cut.
I just cut halfway in between because that doesn't have to be exact. That's just your seam allowance
Okay.
after, right?
Yep.
That's your stitching line.
Yep.
With this ruler or this option, so this option, you can see it's got that little fine line going down. You put that corner to corner, draw your line, and then you could draw on the other side. But with this one, you can do the same thing, only it's the slot that you put corner to corner. And the reason I like this one is that if for some reason you actually wanted to put a line in the middle, you have an opening there where you can mark it occasionally. But anyway, either way, you just draw down either side.
If you're cutting it crooked, it doesn't really matter. It's all hidden in the seam.
It's in the seam allowance, but on a block this size, I would maybe mark it if it was a huge block.
Mm-hmm.
But on a block this size, when you're cutting, you can aim from corner to corner and draw and cut a fairly straight seam there. So that's basically what you do with that. Then you're going to layer.
I can see we have to get the camera figured out.
Well, actually, when you're this way, it'd be better if you switch the picture because then you can look at the thing and know what you're
Okay,
aiming
I'm going to
at.
switch it, ladies. Hold on, don't get dizzy. You mean switch it this way?
Yes. Yeah, but now you can. Can't you turn it around?
I'm seeing it. Yes, it says I can't rotate.
Yeah, but you're rotated. Hold it upright.
Okay.
You guys are going to be dizzy by the time
I'm
she's
sorry,
done.
ladies. I'll get this down straight after a
Okay,
while.
so are you there now?
I'm good now.
So now you're going to layer right sides together, your print and your background.
Yes.
And you will notice, I think this green one is a little, oh no, I guess not. I guess we're good. And a print and a background. Okay? And then you're going to stitch those 2 rows. Now, some people may want to pin, put a couple pins. Depends on what your technique is. Deborah, I can assure you, will not pin. So that's...
Don't assume.
Okay. Well, you feel free to pin if you're going to.
I'm not going to. Do you want me actually to sew that?
Well, you don't have to, but it would be nice. That was the whole point, wasn't it?
Yes.
But to give you an idea, after you get your 22 blocks like this done and cut them in half, you're going to have your 44 half square triangles, and we're going to sew them together in a long strip like this. Now, this isn't quite finished because she's got to add her last couple to this strip, but you would have 22 down and 2 wide, sewn like that.
That looks pretty easy.
Anybody asking any questions?
No.
Okay.
Because you're good at explaining, Twyla.
So that's the first method. Do you ladies want to see her sew those?
I can sew them. I just have to change my foot.
Well, you got to change your foot because you should show the next step, don't you think? The other way.
Yes. Well, I got to show the other one. So I need that foot on my machine to do that. So let me show my method, and then I'll take the foot off.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Okay, we're going to really confuse you.
Oh, well, no,
we're good. So, now, this is the second method.
How much background fabric do you need for the whole quilt? Was 4.5?
4.5 for if you're doing the original quilt, which, I should have looked that up. Wasn't it like 60-something by 60-something?
It was longer than that. It was 67 by 70-something.
I'll put that in the comments, but that's not like a full-size quilt. That would be like a large throw.
Or a twin, maybe.
I don't think it was long enough for a twin.
Okay.
If you want to enlarge it to, which is what Deb is doing, we recommended that you have like 6.5 meters of background or whatever. Okay?
We're doing it as we go by the wing of our, by the seat of our plate.
Perfectly great quilt for scraps.
Yes.
Like you could mix and match your backgrounds, everything in this quilt, and it would look very appropriate. Okay, so the second way, and before you guys panic, after we post this video, I will go on and type in the post
the
measurements and the cutting instructions for both ways. Okay?
So they'll be there.
So the second way, you can obviously see this way you get 2 half square triangles. This way, you are not working with the bias on these seams. The bias is this way, and it's already stitched.
So that's a benefit.
So that's a benefit to some people. Some people really mind working on the bias. Newer sewers sometimes have trouble not stretching their bias. So this way is a good way for beginners or people who mind working with bias. This way you're going to get 4 half square triangles out of 2 pieces of fabric. But you would have to cut them differently. So we want 2.5 inch finished. Oh shoot, and I also had, and I'll have to look that up too, there's a formula, how you figure that out, and I thought I had written that down, but I didn't, so I'll look that up.
So you mean if you wanted a 3
If you wanted to, no, if you want to make 4, you've got to know what size, what that formula is to cut your things.
For another quilt, but for this one it's 4 inches.
Yeah, for this quilt, if you cut your background and your prints at 4 inches square, you will have plenty to square up after you get.
I actually didn't have to square up much, remember?
You didn't, no. So I shouldn't say you'll have plenty. So if you actually want to have
square up room,
if you're worried that your seam allowance isn't as accurate or whatever, you could cut them like 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, and that would give you a little bit more to square up.
Yeah.
So because you get 4, you don't need 22 of each of these. You only need 11 of your background. 4 by 4 or 4 1/4 by 4 1/4, and 11 of your print. And in this case, you're going to lay them right sides together, and you're going to sew around a 1/4 inch seam allowance around the 4 sides. That's what you're going to do. Okay? So I'm going to give these to Deb to whip through on her machine.
I'm going to switch this.
So here you go, getting dizzy again.
Excuse the movement. Look at all my messy shelves.
Okay.
So this is the one that I'm going to do the
1/4 inch seam allowance around all 4 sides.
I don't have to stop and break my thread. I shouldn't have. I should have kept going. You can judge your 1/4 inch when you get there. And then,
right, you could pivot if you wanted to on your machine.
But because this machine works the way it does, I find it just as easy to... the one thing about this machine, it doesn't have a threader. That's my only downfall with this machine.
Okay, so there she goes. And she's...
Oh, I got my stitch. That's aggravating. Sorry, ladies.
We should have shut the phone off this morning.
I never thought of that. Can't think of everything on the run.
No, I know.
I'm lucky I got my shirt on right now.
Exactly.
So I'm getting used to this new machine, and there's a stitch. There's a reason way over there. See how I just pivoted?
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. Want me to do another?
Yeah, do another.
I can't get used to this machine. I know when I do, I'm going to love it even more.
But there's also, I think, a setting where you can have a
There's
longer tail on your thread, and you
that.
haven't figured that out yet, and then it wouldn't pull out of your needle when you use your thread cutter.
It's going to pull out again, I think. So I just made 8.
So in that length of time, she has stitched 8 half square triangles.
Just get, you want to, I'll reach over and grab that other one.
Sure. So now she's just going to change her foot, because she's got one on there with the lip thing on it that won't do half square triangles. Where did we put those?
I'll reach behind, then you don't have to move the camera.
They probably think I'm drunk already the way I'm wiggling. Oh, here they are. Sorry, ladies, I'm trying to reach. Here we go.
I need to get some type of stand that we can.
Okay.
So I'm going to sew these.
So now she's going to sew down.
I'm going to sew on the line. I'm
on
not
the line,
used to
a
this
quarter
method at all.
of. Is that one lined up? There we go. A quarter of an inch on either side of the points, from point to point.
I could have done that.
Yes, you could have.
Let's do that. So that would make it quicker too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're doing your 22 blocks, if you chain piece down one side and then the other.
So there, that wasn't much longer than actually, I just made 4.
Yes.
That really didn't take that long.
No.
Other than having to draw the line on.
So, she's just going to use her scissors where that's a small one and just cut from point to point.
You would use a cutter?
No, I use my scissors on small ones. I do, and I eyeball it. I'm bad.
So we'll come over here. Do you want me to cut it so you don't have to move?
Okay. Whoops. There you go.
So I'm just going to find my pivot point.
So now she's going to cut corner to corner on these.
And I have it.
There we go. There's 4.
This is going to be a quick class. How easy is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
So we have half square triangles.
So we do.
That method.
So
but we might want to press it.
So again, this is bias. Can you show that?
Yeah. So it's bias. If you're concerned about this, at this point you could kind of spray starch them. You could give them a...
So your actual side that you're stitching on is bias on these. So if you pull or tug too much, they may get distorted a bit.
But I don't. I just open it. I just would press it like this and then just kind of roll that up.
Yeah.
And I just ironed instead of pressed because that's what I do.
Yeah.
Twyla would press.
Now, to square those up, Deb, you want to show them the...
Okay.
So, you can square up 2 different ways. If you have, what is this ruler
slotted
called?
trim ruler.
Slotted trim ruler. What are you lining up there?
I'm putting on my dotted line on my sew line.
So the dotted line, if you just pull it off so they can see it.
See
you see that it's measured? There's her sew line.
And my dotted line.
So we want 2.5 inch square. So that's the line that she's choosing. So the dotted line goes on her stitch line.
Yep. And then I would trim whatever's around it. But I found with this method, using the 4 inches, I didn't have any trimming up.
Right. So if you feel more comfortable trimming to have a more accurate block, you should cut probably 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 or whatever. Yeah. Now the other way, if you don't have a special ruler, you can square up with a
Quilter Select, of course.
Yes. Now, if you had the right size ruler, a 2.5-inch square, which we should have pulled one.
Yeah.
They're very simple to square up because then you can cut with your rotating mat around all 4 sides.
So I would just make sure my line's lining up that point and trim the excess.
And then you'd have to flip and do the other two sides unless you're using a 2.5-inch square ruler.
Yeah, but I find this one so much easier for squaring them up before you open them. It's quicker because you're doing all 4 sides.
Yeah, with just 2 cuts, you're trimming the whole 4 sides.
I think your size here needs squaring up, so I'm going to do one of those.
Yeah, they do because those were 3. We cut those at 3.
We cut those on purpose because some people like to square up.
Yes, yeah.
These rotating mats are amazing.
Aren't they amazing?
They just go so easy.
Yeah, they do.
So there was a lot more squaring up with that, but that's great.
Now, if you're a really accurate sewer, you could cut that at your... No, you couldn't cut it 2.5, could you?
No.
No.
But I didn't cut off my dog ears either.
No.
I could easily go in here with this ruler and cut off my dog ears.
Yeah. Now, I'll be honest, when I use that ruler, I do not frig with cutting my dog ears.
But if some people are that type of person, they like to have their dog ears gone.
I typically cut my dog ears. I snip them with my scissors when I cut them apart right then.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, that's what I do. It's just a habit I've gotten into.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
The rotating mats are $65. Now, I'm going to show you a little something about the clapper and pressing some of these.
I'm going to take this back.
Yeah. So some of you have asked again about the clappers, but I just want to show you when I press what I do for 2 reasons. If I was pressing this bunch, and you'll have to forgive the, you're on my cord there with your chair, your wrap. There we go. Okay. I press with my dark side on the top, and I flip it up, and then I just roll it back, hold it there for a second. Then I lay my next one with that seam right below that one. Can you see that?
Yeah.
I don't even think our iron's on.
It was.
I think it shut off. Did we unplug it by mistake?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just hold it. Okay.
Hold it while she plugs in. I think when she rolled over it and wrapped around her chair tires.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's all right.
All right. We're good.
Okay. How do you like that that view, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So then
people call.
I roll this up.
Not really.
And I leave the second one underneath because you're, without scorching your fabric, you're keeping more heat on it. Now, my iron isn't as hot as it should be because it got unplugged, right? But
so how many do you put in the pile?
I would do, because I have now started using the clapper as well, but I did this method even without the clapper.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to scorch your fabric because you keep adding a new fabric on the top, right? So the ones underneath are getting that residual heat to help press them flat. That's what I do. And then after I get a stack, this is the clapper I use. I set those on over here on the corner, and I don't go any wider than what my clapper will cover the seam, and stick that on top. And then I'd move on to ironing the next batch. And by the time I get the next batch ironed, I take those ones out. So that's just what I do. I like the added heat that you get because your mat starts to get hot underneath, and you get heat radiating up, especially when you're on a wool mat.
The wool mats are so nice for ironing, aren't they?
But these are, I just find that this works really, really good for adding some extra heat without burning your fabric. So see those, and I typically use a squirt of water, which I didn't have, or if you use steam in your iron.
I don't use steam in my iron.
So that's what I do, and it's just a way to keep a bit more heat on your blocks. It doesn't take any more time, and I like doing the layered thing like that. Okay.
Okay, so
now what were we doing?
We're just going to show them. You want to show it that block again? Hold that strip up so they can see it.
Right.
One more time.
Oh, I was also going to look. I'm going to have to put the formula. I wrote that down somewhere, and I don't know where I put it. So to do that method that Deb did with that you get your 4, if your pattern doesn't give those directions, there's a formula that you use that you start with. You have to know what size finished block you want, and then you plug it into this formula, and that will tell you how big a piece you would need to cut
to get the desired
get the desired finish size. So I'll put that.
No, we don't. I don't use steam. That's a preference thing only. Do you use steam at home?
I don't use steam in my iron. I have my Mister bottle with distilled water in it.
So
and
explain the difference. Like, why don't you put it through your iron?
I personally don't like to have water sitting in my iron. I find that they eventually start to leak, or they get dirty, or like when you're using your steam, if your iron's dirty and you give it a squirt of steam, all of a sudden you've got brown spots. And yes, my iron would get dirty. So I just don't. And then I don't have to worry if I walk out of my sewing room and don't get back for 2 days that there's water sitting in my iron. I don't have to think about dumping it out. So I keep my Mister bottle, and I would just, as I was ironing those, I would sometimes just put a squirt of mist on them, because the clapper does work better with a little bit of mist or a little bit of steam. But it will work with just dry heat.
Okay. Any other questions?
So, like I said, Deb still needs to sew a couple on this, because she left a couple to show the demo.
This morning.
But this is what you're doing. So it's your 2.5 inch finished, 2.5 inch half square triangles. You want 2 rows of 22. And you're going to sew them together like this. We'll put the picture in the post as well, probably down in the comments, and I'll put all your cutting information. But again, if you're doing the regular way that you get your 2 half square triangles, you need to cut your squares 3 by 3 if you want to square them up a little bit, and you need 22 of each. And if you're going with the other method that Deb showed that makes your 4, you need 11 squares of print and 11 squares of background cut if you want to square up 4 1/4 by 4 1/4.
Yes, Lorraine, so far with these 2 blocks, I won't say you can use it through the whole thing, but you could have used the jelly roll. She wants to know if you could use the jelly roll. All of these.
So far, but I've got a feeling we're going to get to parts that you can't use.
There would be a lot of waste with the jelly roll, because you wouldn't be able to, you had a 2.5 inch strip, you would only be able to get 1 half square triangle out of your block. You wouldn't be able to sew your line on either side.
No.
But you could use a jelly roll if you have one that you want to use up. It's just not efficient. You could use it for the flying geese easily, because those were 2.5 by 4.5 strips. That for step 1, you could have used a jelly roll.
Yeah, you could have, but not this step. No.
Unless
okay, so I think that's it. So you guys need to start posting some of your
some people have
options. I know they look,
and they're really
nice.
Cute. I really like the polka dot one, and I really
there was a black and red one that was going to be very striking. I forget whose that was.
Everybody that posted them is like, wow, I should have done those colors.
Yep, they look really nice. So on Deborah's quilt page, you can quilt project page, you can post some of your blocks as you get going. So the other thing is, Deborah didn't trim these. Some people are very fanatical about trimming their dog ears to reduce bulk in your points and whatnot. So that's, again, everybody sews different, and there's no right or wrong. So this is a good stage here. You can either trim it with your ruler when you're trimming, or snip it with your scissors there and get rid of those just to reduce some bulk in your corners.
And you do that when you're sewing? If that was your strip, you would have the dog ears go?
Yeah, cool. I do.
You know me, anything to make it faster.
Anything. Deb's all about speed. Okay, I think that's it. So next class is next Wednesday at 9 o'clock.
Okay, somebody's saying, if I had lots with the same fabric, I could sew strips and use my... Yes, you could do that with your slotted. If you didn't want a big variety, that's the only reason...
That we didn't showcase that.
Yeah, that we didn't showcase that. It's because we've deemed this to be a scrappy quilt. But if you wanted to use your slotted ruler and take a strip and make it into a tube and then use your slotted ruler, like... You
could.
Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah. Or if you're using layer cakes or whatever, and you just want to do like your 10-inch strips and do, you know, what you can get out of your 10-inch strips sewn that way.
Yeah. Press your seams towards your dark.
Towards your dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions, ladies?
So I think that's it for this week.
All right. Everybody, thank you for joining. Thanks for watching. And we will see you here next Wednesday.
Yeah, and I'll
I'll
get those instructions posted with the video shortly.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
I can't get it to shut off with it making it blur.